Hey friends, welcome back to another
Keep that. Don't cut that.
Redo.
That's the first mistake I've ever heard from Brandon. Please keep that, Josh.
I already had to do an hour talk this morning, by the way, at the camp. So I'm running on fumes already. Hey friends, welcome back to another Toolkit video, but this time we don't have a whiteboard. It's just Jake and I, and we're gonna talk through rapid skill acquisition. Look, the reality is the Open is right around the corner, and then quarterfinals for those that make semifinals, that will be here before you know it. And sometimes there are skills that you don't yet have mastery over. And so we wanted to give you some tips on how to start mastering those skills in a short time window because, again, the Open will be here before you know it. So Jake, do you wanna kind of kick us off with a couple examples of things that you can do to improve your skill acquisition?
I'm only laughing because I'm saying, well, fortunately we have a whiteboard, but it's right there.
It's right behind
you
the
guys
camera.
Can't see it. Those are our notes, which Josh, ever since the one time you're like, you got to show them your notes or whatever now, for some reason I feel like, to maintain my integrity, if I'm ever reading from something, I'm like, guys, we have a whiteboard right there with our main points that we're going to make as we're talking. What did you ask me, Brandon?
You memorized all of them.
Yeah, exactly.
We got 4 points for rapid
that's right.
skill.
Yes. Yeah. So sorry guys. The first one, so just go like kind of give a little more context, jumping into it is like, this is really for people, Brandon and I were chatting about before, because there's kind of different levels of skill development, right?
For sure.
You're like, you could be somebody going into the Open or going into quarterfinals and you're like, I literally have never done a ring muscle up before. I've never been able to handstand walk. We're going to gear this more towards people who are like, man, I can do one on a good day. And I've had a day where it was like really crazy and I did two, or I can handstand walk like 10 feet. And one time it was just crazy out of nowhere. I went 20 feet. So you can do a couple reps. You can do, 15, 20 double unders unbroken, but you start to trip up after you get to 30 or whatever. These are more tips for those individuals because some of these would not apply in cases where you've never done the movement before.
Right. You don't have the strength to do a muscle up,
100%.
for example. That's going to take more time.
Yeah. Range of motion, strength, whatever that may be. So the first one is for those of you guys who are like, man, I can do a couple toe to bar, a couple handstand walk, or whatever it might be, and I want to make sure I can do it proficiently in the Open or in quarterfinals. One simple thing that we like to do is use a frequency method and sprinkle the movement into all of your warm-ups.
Yeah. I just want to take one step back, and it's thinking about the highest value movements in your warm-ups. What are the ones that you definitely need practice on, and make sure you sprinkle those in first. And then another way to think about this, I use this term separation value, which I've talked about a little bit on other podcasts, but what that means is we're identifying the movements that have the biggest separation in CrossFit. So what are the things that are going to allow you to kind of move up the leaderboard the fastest? And some of those are the most commonly tested movements because you just know they're going to come out. So in the Open, things like ring muscle ups, chest to bar pull-ups, toes to bar, sometimes handstand walking, those are movements that are going to separate you from those that just don't have the movement. And in particular, something like a ring muscle up.
Yeah, and age group related too, right? Like because you coach a lot of masters athletes, what are some of the movements that are the biggest separators amongst masters athletes?
Yeah, so ring muscle ups is number one, especially in the older age groups. If you have them in 55 to 59, for example, just doing one rep will qualify you into quarterfinals on that workout because you're moving up 1,000 spots or 2,000 spots for those that maybe are even more fit than you, but they can't do the ring muscle up once they come out in the workout. And then another one would be handstand push-ups and then handstand walking.
Yeah, the most frequent or the most common movement I've used the frequency method with is double unders.
Yeah.
Especially because I think for a lot of people, it gets kind of in their heads, and then they do all these drills and they're thinking about it all the time. And when you're only touching it 1 or 2 days a week, I just feel it's not enough. Plus it's like low cost, right? Like it's not going to beat you up too bad. You're not getting like a ton of muscle damage or anything crazy like that. And so what I like to do, it's almost always worked, by the way, too. If I get somebody who can only do like 20 double unders or something, and you just give them like sets that they can be really confident with. So something like if somebody's max unbroken set is 20, I'll put, 3 sets or 4 sets of 10 in every warm up 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And like I've said, it's actually always worked for people. They always get better at it.
Yeah, it's just you're getting more exposure. You can already do the movement, and so now you're practicing the movement efficiency, movement economy of doing the actual movement, and with frequency, which allows you to adapt a little bit faster.
Yeah, I think just a couple other simple examples would be something like rope climb, right? So if you want to work on your proficiency, let's say it's going up the rope and working on your foot clamp, or even coming down the rope too, right? Like being quick with that.
Matters, especially at a higher level of the sport.
Yeah, just doing so you put your normal warm up together, like 3 sets, 10 yoga push-ups, 10 ankle banded, air squats, bird dogs, whatever, and then just do 1 rope climb.
Yeah.
Right. 3-4 sets, or put, 2 rope climbs kind of mixed in between some of the other movements. And it makes a big difference. Those reps add up over time.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, real quick, we do that in every other sport.
For sure.
Right? Like, I mean, basketball, how often do you shoot free throws? Football, everything. I know we have to be careful in the sport of fitness because the volume will add up quickly. But this is one of the few quote unquote sports that, quote unquote sport, makes it sound like it's not a sport. It is a sport. I meant more that like, we don't actually practice the frequency method. We don't use it too often.
Yeah.
So
I think just one note on this, if you choose to do them in your warm-up, especially, 4 or 5 times a week, you still got to be careful with the volume. So to your point, Jake, if you have 20 unbroken double unders, you're not doing 200 reps in a warm-up. You're just practicing smaller sets. Maybe it's 5 on the minute for 5 minutes, and you're just literally getting the practice of spinning the rope on that first jump and getting into a rhythm each minute, and then you move on to the rest of your warm-up.
It's really from, gosh, what's the guy's name? Pavel, what's his last name? How do you pronounce his last name?
Oh, I have no idea.
Yeah. Anyways, the Russian guy.
Yeah.
You grease the groove is what he calls it.
That's right.
Like we're greasing the groove with skills in your warm-ups. Simplest way of putting it.
That's exactly right.
You want to jump in the second?
Yeah, the second one is to engineer early wins. And I think this is true with anything in life. Like you can't just go from 0 to 100. Like we've got to have some kind of step method that allows us to see progress in life, in business, and in CrossFit. And so maybe you touch on that a little bit because you've been doing some skill courses with your graduate degree.
It's popped up a couple times. So I took a whole class on skill development and sports expertise, and this was a recurring theme. And then actually right now I'm just in like a kind of more of like a general strength and conditioning class where we're talking like biomechanics and the endocrine system, all this sort of stuff. But even then it popped up in this course again, and they brought up skill development and motor learning. And one of the like best techniques, and when I say it's well-researched, Brandon, I'm talking like hundreds of studies on this at this point where it is definitive that one of the best ways to learn a new skill or get better at one or even unlearn one and learn a new habit is to what they call enhance expectations, or it's called enhance expectancies. It's part of the optimal theory of motor learning. And it's a really simple idea. It's basically just saying when people are highly motivated and believe that they can be successful, AKA like a growth mindset, their accuracy goes through the roof.
Yeah. But how do you do that practically is have those early wins,
100%.
Right? It can't just be, I've never done a bar muscle up, so I'm going to keep trying to do a bar muscle up. And then every time you fail, you're actually losing confidence in the ability to do that movement.
Yeah. The best example I can think of is there was actually when I taught PE for a semester, the guy that I taught it with, Mike Blicker. I'm awful at basketball, by the way, Brandon, like really bad.
We need to play horse.
Yeah, I know. Baseball, football player. My wife's sitting in the background here. My wife can like beat me one-on-one just because she's got a better shot than me. It's really frustrating. So on there, like Coach Blicker was great. He's a basketball coach. He's actually become like one of the best high school basketball coaches in Florida. And he would come up to me because we'd play with the kids like every day, and he's like, Foster, stop freaking shooting threes, right? Like
Steph.
Even, like stop even doing free throws. He's like, put yourself right up underneath the basket, and I want you to warm up with like 50 shots right underneath the hoop before you even take a couple steps back. And what he was doing there was what we're talking about: engineering early wins, enhancing my expectancies and expectations for myself, building my confidence early in that little, quote unquote warm up session, so that then I would be more successful like later on when I'm just shooting around and having fun.
Yeah, that's such a good point too. And I just made the joke about Steph Curry, but like that's one of the things he does in his warm-ups.
I didn't know that.
And
okay.
He obviously is not maybe taking 50 shots down on the block, but he'll start on the block and then kind of move back to the elbow and a couple free throws. And then he goes crazy. Like everyone's seen those videos where he's shooting half court shots, but he's always building that into his warm-up routine before games because he wants to perfect the movement that he has to do in the game.
What about golf? Do people mix it up, or is everybody starting with like just chip shots or putting, or what do they typically
Everyone
do?
mixes up because it's based on the rotational warm up.
Yeah.
But those guys are, it's actually funny because I was just talking to somebody about watching our neighbor. He's a huge golfer and he went out to a tournament last year. And I remember going to the Tour Championship when Tiger won in 2019. No one cares about this, listen to this podcast, but it was so cool watching Tiger Woods, the best golfer of all time, warm up, because he spent probably 15 or 20 minutes before he hit a ball just working on the club positions before he swung the club. And so he had his club, he's going back halfway, then coming back down and back halfway and then back down, just working on, again, greasing the groove. And then he started hitting shots. And all those guys, you'll see them in their practice rounds, practicing where the club should be first before they hit a ball.
I think, too, you think about another example for myself is learning double unders for the first time. I like locked myself in the garage, no exaggeration, one night. And I'm like, I'm going to freaking get these. And like, you're whipping yourself in the back and I'm chucking it against the wall. And it's like, we don't learn well that way. Like this is so, you don't have to read research on the optimal theory of motor learning to know, like nobody learns skills well when they're ticked off. Right. And so what we're saying is a practical example is like you go into the gym, let's say you're an open gym in your local affiliate, and you're trying to get bar muscle ups down. You can do 2 to 3 on a good day. Right. And like 1 when you're tired. Put a box under the bar and do some box assisted bar muscle ups, grease the groove, get the reps down, build your confidence. It doesn't have to be crazy volume. You could do like 3 sets of 3 or even less, right? Like 2 reps by 3 sets with box assisted, just to kind of get that motion down and be like, man, it's a good day for bar muscle ups. By the way, too, I would literally say it's a great day for bar muscle ups or something like that. Like literally, like, you know, we were talking before the podcast started about Tom Brady I was listening to, and just, you know, nowadays people call it manifesting, which I don't love that language, but just the confidence that he has and other great athletes have where they literally say it out loud, like, hey, we're going to go win the Super Bowl today. Or like, I actually heard him, like it was in the documentary, the Tampa Bay Bucks documentary, where he was walking on the field and he just went up to one of the owners of the Bucks and he was like, today's going to be a good day. And he lit it up. Yeah. Right. And I mean, the research and enhanced expectancies is just full of examples like that. So engineering it in the drills that you're doing, and then also, not being afraid to literally say it out loud.
Right. Yeah. So, but you can't build that confidence again, just going from nothing to something. You have to have those early wins, practicing the movements. And a good example to your point was the bar muscle up of maybe you're doing some jumping bar muscle ups or, you know, assisted or a banded variation. I actually, when I'm changing someone's technique, you know, I have an athlete right now we're just tweaking the bar muscle up technique and they can do probably 15 or 20 unbroken. So they're pretty good at them. I still have them doing spotted reps with someone so that they don't have to worry about the turnover. They're only working on one cue that I've given them. Yeah. And those are like simple examples of like, I want the win first. Like the body line needs to be perfect. So you're going to have someone spot you, even though you can do it until that's perfect. And then we'll move to regular bar muscle ups.
I love using the language like, this is the other thing too, in motor learning research, failure is a good thing. Like we know that too, right? Like it's okay to fail. But what we're saying is the athlete who walks in the gym who's been failing repeatedly, right? And they're doing it either under fatigue or they're failing because they're frustrated and they can't get it down. It's like, don't practice failure, right? Practice success, start it early on. And then it's okay when you get into like, now I'm going to go do normal bar muscle ups. It's okay if you fail a couple reps. That's part of growth and that's part of learning, but set yourself up for success, enhance your expectancies before you start, and you're going to learn quicker that way.
The third one is having more constraints around your skill sessions or less cues as opposed to most people that are just very technical. And there are times in the off season that you need to be technical and you're continuing to refine movements, but especially when you're thinking about rapid skill acquisition, you need to start putting like these almost tactile cues in place that are constraining you to do that pattern well.
Yeah. The body learns better with external cues than internal cues. So we learn better when, you know, instead of saying things like during teaching somebody to deadlift for the first time, like push your butt back or hinge at your hips, which by the way, like, you know, I coach high schoolers in person. It's like no 15-year-old even understand how, like, what does hinging at your hips even mean? Yeah. Right. Like they learn best when you put a PVC pipe behind them and go, hey, push your butt to the PVC pipe.
Or up against a wall and your butt needs to hit the wall.
The wall tap hip hinge. Exactly. Yeah. So it's, when we're having this conversation, to kind of go back to Brandon, what you were saying at the beginning, I have a person in mind when Brandon and I were texting about wanting to talk about this podcast, and it's the person in the gym who's been just frustrated because they've been doing CrossFit, and I have intro calls with these people all the time, 3 to 5 years, and they'll always say, hey, Jake, I've plateaued. And I'm always like, what have you plateaued with? It's usually strength or skill. Yeah. And they've been hammering, again, I always picture the bar muscle. They've been hammering bar muscle ups at the end of their classes, and they just can't get it down, or the handstand walk. They just can't get it down. And, you know, they've been coached up a lot too, right? Like, so they've had people tell them like, hey, think about your feet in relation to your hips, and think about where your hands should be, and think about on the handstand walk that your feet should be out in front of your body, and you want to think about your core, and you want to make sure you have a good posterior tilt. No, you're like,
so you got 1,000 cues, you can't think of any of them.
Yeah, that's the person that we're talking to right now. And so it's thinking about what can you do to get less language in your head and less verbiage and thinking about your body, because that starts to make us like robotic. And how can you set up your environment in a way where your body can self-regulate in the skill? So for example, I'll give one, and Brandon, you can give a couple others. Cool. handstand walking. One of my favorite cues from Tyler is like, hey, when you kick up for a handstand, bring your hands in closer than what you even think. Because a lot of us like get real wide and our hands are outside of our shoulders and we, fall over. A great way of setting up a constraint instead of thinking about the placement of your hands is tape a line.
Yep.
So tape, chalk line, your gym owner is going to get ticked off at you, right? Like, cause you're going to chalk it all over the floor, or tape 2 like blue, red lines and literally just tell yourself, my hands have to stay within these lines.
Walk on the lines.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Another good one. I use this all the time for athletes in the ring muscle up who they kind of get into what I call the death L when you turn over. A lot of you probably have done this where your legs are straight out in front of you and it's hard to turn over. So a real easy cue is just to stick a PVC pipe or anything else that they cannot kick when they turn over on the ring muscle up. And obviously, it's still hard for those that aren't good at the skill, but if you're someone that is pretty good at spatial awareness, it's a really easy way to get your feet down and turn over. And that's just a simple constraint without me having to cue them with 1,000 cues that then they're thinking and then they're overthinking, which means they're going to do poor or have poor reps.
Let's give a couple other examples. I've seen this used before. I've never done it myself personally, so I can't speak to it like anecdotally or experientially, but putting, a lot of times we'll say, hey, don't let your hands flare out in the double unders, like keep your wrists in, keep your hands in. Again, another internal cue that's forcing people to think about their own body parts that can make them robotic is just putting a band around the wrists.
Yeah.
Right?
Or boxes. I love using the box drill. So now your hands can't, if you hit the box, it's going to stop the double under.
Or like snatching in front of a wall if you miss in front. No, don't do that. I've always thought about that one.
Sounds nice.
Yeah, good Lord. Yeah, that might be a little risky. Simple one, maybe for those of you guys who are listening, you're like, okay, those are high skilled movements. What about practical stuff? Like, we'll go back to the hip hinge too. I was doing this the other night with an 8th grade football player that I work with and basketball player. And man, he has such trouble shifting his weight back during the deadlift. And so we were doing some rob the forefoot drills. So you put 2 little 10-pound change plates on the ground and you have him, step on the change plates. And for those of you guys who are watching, like if this is the plate and he puts his foot, on the plate and so his toes are off. And so he has no choice but to shift. I mean, his weight is already on his heels. It's a form of RNT, right? Reactive neuromuscular training. So there's probably a million examples and ones that you and I have never tried that we should even think through more. But yeah, set up your environment in a way where you don't have to get fed with more information. You're not overthinking your body. You're not getting robotic, which leads to getting the yips, and allow your body to kind of self-regulate around some of these constraints.
I love that. And the last one, this kind of seems obvious because everyone does this in CrossFit, but at some point as you get closer to competition, let's say it's the week of the open and it's going to be toe to bar and double unders or handstand pushups, things that you're still working on. You need to start practicing that skill under fatigue. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I teach in the mentorship course, like the skill development section, and I'm always like beating a dead horse being like, don't do it under fatigue. And that's the big gist of the talk that we do. There's an asterisk there, which is like, hey, the sport we play has us do really high skills under fatigue.
A lot of fatigue.
We're heading into the season. And so if we're going to be sports specific, we have to play the game. And so and again, this is geared towards the people who are like, hey, I can hit a couple on a good day. Or it's like, if you don't have the skill at all, Brandon, you can chime in on this. Like, well, if you don't have the skill at all, if you can't even do a ring muscle up, no, you should not practice doing, an assault bike or echo bike sprint into a ring muscle up. Yeah. Like you're never going to get it for the first time. But if you're somebody who can do 1 or 2, you do need to know what it feels like to do ring muscle ups after you've done power cleans, toes to bar, wall balls, rowing, etc. So, I don't know if you want to give them a little practical progression to follow with that.
Yeah, I think the key here is still in bite-sized chunks. Yeah. So, if you're someone that only has a few reps of a movement, let's use the ring muscle up because that is complicated to kind of build into maybe doing sets of 10 or 12. That's a high-level skill. Then maybe you start a couple of weeks out where it's just a very simple EMOM. Hey, 10 minutes on the minute, I'm doing a 60-second easy bike, and on the other minute, I'm just doing 1 ring muscle up. So you're just getting a little bit of respiratory fatigue or cardiac fatigue going into the ring muscle up, and then you can create more density as you go. Or if you want to build it into what looks like CrossFit, maybe it's 5 rounds for time of you do wall balls and power cleans and burpees, but then you set it up in a way, and I do this with a lot of athletes, rest 45 seconds after you do a round, and then it's 1 ring muscle up, and then you start the next round. So it doesn't necessarily feel just like CrossFit, but it's a good opportunity for you to get exposure to all the chaos of the movements that may come out, and then you still have to execute on that skill.
Yeah, I think we're always at risk of when we teach this stuff, like, sometimes not providing enough context where we pull people too much away from sports specificity. So this is just our simple reminder, like, you got to play the game. There are wise ways of playing the game. Like you just said, like, hey, listen, do a little mini chipper. And at the end, you do 1 ring muscle up and then rest a minute.
Yep. And then just keep repeating
and then
that.
do it again.
Yep.
You will get the feeling of what it feels like to do ring muscle ups when your grip's a little shot, when you're breathing a little heavy, so that on game day, you don't hop up there and you're like, man, it's time to just like PR my ring muscle ups or something like that. And you're like, but I've never felt this way before. Right. You get a little bit of that feeling ahead of time.
That's right.
So,
and it's a good way to build confidence as you get a couple ring muscle ups under your belt. Then you know the second week of the open, there is wall balls, power cleans, double unders, burpees, and then it finishes with ring muscle ups. You know that you can do one. And like I said at the beginning, even 1 rep can move you into quarterfinals because there are a lot of athletes that yet don't have those movements.
perfect.
Awesome. Cool. Well, remember those 4 and let's crush the open.